Oh, we actually? It doesn't seem like we are. The live page isn't showing us as live. Why will it take a moment? No, I'm impatient. Let's see. No, it still says offline. The delay isn't this long. Oh, I know. Here we go. Oh, yeah. Okay, I guess the delay is this long. Um, and do we have audio? Is it all working? Well, we do have audio, but the delay is rather extreme. Yep. Okay. Well, yes, you can. You can and will. What are you talking about? It's not the delay isn't light speed. It's not like the minimum conceivable ping. Yeah. All right. Yes, you can. You can do this. You can do this, Bones. I believe in you. Um. Oh, can't hear Bones when he talks at all. Okay, Tucci in the chat. So this turns out this one is going to be, yeah, figuring things out one. Um, and it's taking a very long time for this to go. Like, if you look at the live chat, um, Tucci isn't showing up, which means you've probably got the wrong live chat open there. No, that's fine. That's fine. I reckon from now on, just don't worry about scheduling it because I think that's the thing which messed it up. Let's just go on. Yeah, just add the chat in live. It's not. It won't be a really big deal. So Eric's on mobile. Yeah, Eric. So there's a person in the chat, Eric Quartucci. That sounds familiar. Is on mobile, so he's saying maybe he can't hear you because of that, but he still can't hear you. No, you're definitely just not being picked up. So I think we're going to have to can the stream and try again. I can hear you, but I can't on the stream. So you're not. There's no audio for you. All right, now Tucci's showing up in the live chat thing. Okay, but now we need to fix the audio issues. So this is
Can you hear me
welcome
now?
any newcomers.
You should be
Let's
able to
see.
hear me now. I
Oh
think.
yeah,
Okay, so
I
you
heard
can.
you. You're a little quiet, but I can hear you.
I can probably fix that too. Let me.
Okay. So any newcomers, you are now watching us struggle with technical difficulties as we attempt to use OBS. That is literally what the stream is at the moment. It will eventually be turning into the good arguments, but that is not yet.
Well, So approximately how much quieter am I than you, Danny? Like, if you had to give me a percentage, because I can boost my volume. I just need to know sort of how much to boost my volume.
You're maybe 30%.
Okay, let's try bumping that up then. How's that? Better or worse? Or the same? Or
Marginally better,
marginally better?
I
Okay.
think.
I'll bump it up a little bit more then. Okay. Should be better now. I can kind of see the levels on my end.
Yeah, you're still a little quiet, honestly.
All right, well, I'll go to 200% then. I don't know. Boom. Echoing voice. Loud. Very loud. Maybe
uh,
I should be quieter. Maybe I should just be a soft little bunny.
okay, I think you're sort of sounding okay now.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure though.
Hmm.
All right, so I'm going to. I'll put the link in the description for people to join, and we'll be able to get some conversation going. Um, Click here to join the waiting room. And I'll also send it to our friend there. All right. We've still got 4 people watching for some reason. I don't know. If there's at least 4 people interested in watching us fuck up with our technical difficulties and everything.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
Right. All right. And we should have at least someone coming in
Well,
at
we
some
have
point.
somebody in our waiting room now.
Oh, we have someone in our waiting
Yes,
room.
we
Who's
do.
in our
We have
waiting
somebody
room?
in our waiting room.
Oh, it's Fudder.
It's
Okay.
Butternut. Should we drag him in here?
Fuddernut, eh? Yeah. Let's drag him in
All
and let's
right,
try this out.
let's bring Butternut in here. Salutations, Butternut.
Hello, Fudder?
Butternut,
No, we don't.
are you
Okay,
there?
when please tell me we don't have more technical difficulties. We appear to have more technical difficulties. Okay, so this is the technical difficulties show. I hope you're enjoying it.
Let's
Um,
see what we can do about
yeah.
that real quick. Let's
I
try
mean,
this. Butternut, hello. Well, he has permission to speak. I made sure
oh
I gave him
man,
that.
yeah.
Hello, St.
I
Clair
don't
in the
know, man.
chat. Maybe it's
Yeah,
on Futter's side. Maybe he's the one screwing up, and it's not actually
maybe
our issue at all.
maybe he is. I'll make sure to have the link in the chat too. Um, hmm. And we'll see if anyone else comes in. Maybe they can. Oh yeah, I'll drag Tucci in. Hello, Tucci.
Hello,
Welcome to
Tucci.
Danny and the Rabbit.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes,
can.
we
So it's
can,
all
which
Futter's
means
problem.
Futter is bad, and we're gonna kick him out.
All
It's all
right.
his fault.
It is all his fault. Yeah. So basically, the premise of this show is we'll invite on anyone who wants to come on, and they can talk about whatever they want. If they're boring, though, we'll kick them off. The idea is because we've been on a lot of streams, and everyone sucks but us. So we wanted to be able to curate exactly who's allowed on and what they're allowed to talk about, and basically just be entirely authoritarian control freaks. So does
Wow,
that sound good?
that's way different than what you guys typically argue for.
Yeah, well, no, see, I'm against authoritarianism unless I'm the authoritarian.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of the consistent trend when it comes to people who advocate for authoritarianism, right? They just assume they're in leadership position. But see, in our case, we
Right,
don't need to assume. We actually have that power. So
right. Unless you are some kind of really elite hacker, I'm pretty secure in the knowledge that we are going to be in control.
I guess it's fair. Yeah.
All right. Now, the general premise is that we'd have something going and you'd want to argue about it. What are we wrong about, Tucci?
Well,
Nothing. He doesn't think we're wrong about anything. Oh, Fudder's
yeah,
ready now.
I'll say I pretty much always agree with you guys. So
Yeah.
like,
Except for the
Futter,
Jesus stuff, but you don't like arguing about that.
Yeah, I'm pretty just benign with all that. Futter seems to be kind of a communist. If you want to just drag him in, I'll eat and listen.
Okay, then.
Or can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
All right. Sorry about that. I was trying a new setup on a different computer and it didn't work.
I forgive you.
I'm beginning to hate voice meter.
You're beginning to hate. So we've been informed that you're a communist. Is this true?
I would be a communist sympathizer, but I do not believe in any way, shape, or form that it could be implemented into society as we have it.
So you're one of those people who thinks that communism is nice in theory.
Yes,
Okay.
but it will not
So
work.
what is the theory? What is the nice theory?
The nice theory is there's work for everyone. Everyone gets what they work for. Oh, fuck. This is too early in the fucking morning. Sorry, I had to just crack a beer.
Just fair enough. Maybe you need to be a beer in you before you can extol the virtues of communism. It does seem like something you need to be drunk for.
Absolutely.
All right. The way I like communism is the same way I like Star Trek.
Right.
Unfortunately,
Okay, you think it's
where
impossible, but
no one starves for anything, but the theory of it's great. Like, the theory of it is there is no starvation, there is no famine, but in all honesty, it would never work. It's been
Right.
tried. It's been
well,
tried.
there's an issue that I'd have there. Okay, so communism, is it actually good in theory, right? Because every ideology can be considered to be good in theory. You can say, oh, well, my ideology that we should actually go around stabbing everyone in the face for no reason. What that's actually going to do is everyone will actually be empowered by these stabs in the face. They'll like get superpowers rather than being hurt in any way. You know, you can make up something like that, but the point is that the thing they're advocating is stabbing people in the face, and the thing communists are advocating is restricting what kind of economic activity you can partake in, right? So just saying, oh, well, it works, and the theory is that it works, but in reality it doesn't. You've got to say what part of the theory makes communism especially good. I mean,
Right,
even
like-
if it worked perfectly, you would still be
Well-
restricted in terms of the economic activity you can engage in, yes?
Yes. Are we talking like actual communism, or are we using communism as a coverall for socialism?
I'm happy either way.
Yeah, I would
honestly.
use the words
Like-
analogously as well. But
Like,
what-
that's
one-
the thing. Communism, even socialism would just turn into communism. But the whole idea where no one starves, no one.
Well, hold on. So how are you distinguishing the two? Like, what's the main distinction between communism and socialism? Like, if you had to give one sentence that differs them.
The dictation of what you can and can't do.
So the authoritarian element, right? Communism is authoritarian,
Right.
Socialism isn't. I mean,
Right.
everyone's
Right.
gonna
Where
have sort of a
communism, they
different-
tell you what you're going to do for work. Socialism, you can choose what.
right,
Socialism, you'd still have personal choice.
right. Like,
Right.
my main consideration here is, so when you sort of talk about the whole utopian, there's no starvation, there's no, no one wants for anything. My question is, if you had sort of like a utopian world where, like, food, for example, was so plentiful that nobody would ever starve, how would communism be better than capitalism within that sort of situation, right? Because if there was just so much stuff, right, that food was basically worthless, then in free market capitalism, no one would starve, right? Because food would be free.
Granted, you're talking about a utopian society. At that point where there is no one wants for anything because everything is there, like Star Trek era.
Well, I mean,
Well-
we're getting pretty close to that at the moment, to be honest. Right? Like food, the amount that you actually have to spend if you just want basic sustenance is so ridiculously little. But in any case, like you'd still. What is the difference? Why would you say that socialism or communism sounds good in theory? I mean, would you say the same thing about Islam? Does Islam sound good in theory?
Fuck no.
But all they want is for everyone to go to an eternal paradise, right? That sounds good, doesn't it?
Oh yes.
So Islam is good in theory.
Well, so would Christianity, so would Buddhism, so would fucking fill in the blank here.
Well, precisely. So, like, when you say communism is good in theory, do you literally just mean that they say it will work out? Because if that's all you mean, then that's the same with every ideology.
The ideology, when you talk to a utopian society where you want for nothing, the only way that communism let's say socialism rather than communism, because I think the dictatorship and the authoritarian aspect of communism is bad. I'm not going to lie about that. So let's go to socialism where no one starves for nothing. It's great in theory until you get human greed involved. Once there's human greed in there, it's done. Like all of a sudden you are going to have the authoritarianism. And it's the exact same thing with capitalism, except at that point when you're really wanting to starve for nothing and you're in the realm of inventing something new, what you're going to have is suppression on it. And that is
but
people...
would you really though? Like,
yes.
I mean,
yes,
no,
you would.
I don't really agree,
Yes, you would.
because look, if food is as plentiful as, sorry, my family is deciding to make a bunch of noise in the one time that we're recording. It's distracting. But I mean, like, here's an example, right? If food were as plentiful as air, right, you wouldn't starve. Because in a capitalist society now, even in comparatively authoritarian capitalist society, we're not just talking about free market trade. You don't suffocate.
You're giving humans too much fucking credit. We're despicable fucking creatures of the world.
But you're sort of ignoring the point that I'm making here, right?
When food becomes...
If food were as plentiful as air, you would get it, as evidenced by the fact that you have air now.
Okay, and at that point, I poison everyone's fucking crops, make it so it's not plentiful anymore, so somebody has to buy off my crops.
Yes, but that doesn't happen.
What would stop it?
Well, other people, right? Like, if you enact force on them, then they can respond with force in turn. And the fact is there's not really a lot of advantage to just screwing over a bunch of people.
It's one of those conversations. Okay. First, you have to catch the person. You have to catch whoever's doing it.
Well, I think if they're pulling a Mr. Burns blotting out the sun kind of thing where they literally poisoned all of the air, they wouldn't be that hard to catch. It seems like a pretty significant act. I mean, it's hard to rip off like a store without getting caught. I imagine something like on the level of a James Bond villain would be much more difficult to get away with anonymously.
No. Oh no, because what that would be is, that's the difference between like being conniving and not. Is say we each have 100 crops. Guess what? I'm going to poison 75 of your crops and 25 of my own. But then when you come back, oh, well, he's got all these crops. I'll be like, well, why the fuck would I poison my own?
To divert suspicion away from yourself? Like, we just covered that, didn't you? I mean, that would be the reason, right? Like, and in addition, I mean, you have to still go through the mechanical act of delivering the poison, right? Like, that's sort of the main consideration there. So, I mean,
well,
here's an example.
If you're good at a crime, you're going to get away with the crime.
Well,
Al Capone fucking proved that one.
But
he was never charged for all the. He was never charged with all the murders and shit he did. He was charged with something a lot more petty.
Well, I think that's because
I
don't think Al Capone actually did murder people. I think he got other people to do it.
Well, and in addition to that,
you're charged under conspiracy to commit murder.
Right.
Well, in addition to that too, Al Capone's an interesting case because he's sort of the opposite of what you're describing, right? You're talking about a situation where there was a prohibition and there was an economic demand for a thing, and Al Capone supplied it. In the
Well,
converse,
no.
however, we're
When I
talking about a
brought
situation where people want a thing.
Bones. When I brought
Sure.
Al Capone up, it had nothing to do with economics. What it had to do with was
Right,
the
but
ability to get away with a crime.
right, but my point is sort of in the inverse. Yeah, if there's an economic demand, if the majority of the society wants you to commit that crime, then yeah, absolutely, you're going to get away with it, right? Because you have the public support, right? And Al Capone did because he was providing a service to people that they wanted, right? He was fighting against prohibition, and most people didn't want prohibition, as evidenced by the
Al
fact we don't
Capone
have
did
it
nothing
now.
wrong. Like someone in the chat says Al Capone did nothing wrong. Absolutely, totally
Where
correct.
is
Yeah.
where is the YouTube link to this? Because the one on the screen's not working. The one in
I
Discord's
can.
not working.
Oh no, not in Discord. If you go onto the stream itself, you'll be able to see the.
Yeah, I can't find the actual stream.
I think we can link that into the Discord chat. Hang on.
Is it on Danny's channel or
No, it's a brand
Whose
new channel
channel?
called Danny and the Rabbit. Is the name of the channel.
Yeah, I just threw the stream into the Discord chat there. But
Yeah.
more to the point. So here's an example. So my question then is, why don't I have to pay for air now?
I don't know. Because it is absolute plentiful.
Right, and that's, I mean, that's my point, right? So if food
Like,
were
I
just
do
as plentiful,
understand what you're saying. I do understand what you're saying, but when you start talking about like being able to market something,
hmm
the
Mhm.
greed will overcome all.
No, it won't. It didn't overcome the free air. Right, air is still free. Right, no matter how greedy someone is, they can't own all the air, right? And just not letting anyone have it. It's just too plentiful. Additionally, there's something about capitalism that you're sort of missing out on, which is greed doesn't make someone rich in capitalism, right? Imagine someone like sitting at home, getting really greedy, and they're like that. They're now the feeling of greed, because that's what greed is. It's a feeling. The feeling of greed is growing inside them. They're getting so greedy, Fada. You would not believe how greedy this person's getting. They just want everything, but they don't get any of it, right? In order to get something under capitalism, you need to convince someone to give you that thing. And the way you convince someone to give you that thing is provide them something that they want. Right? So greed does not make you rich under capitalism. It doesn't do anything. Providing other people the things that they want makes you rich under capitalism.
I probably wouldn't argue that. I don't
Okay.
think I'd have an argument for it.
well,
Good.
another interesting point might be that greed may even have a converse effect. It might actually do the opposite of make you rich, right? If you're extremely frugal, then you might not take the risks or enter into the investments that you need to be able to become wealthy.
Right. So depending on what we're talking about with greed, if you're talking about greed as in like you don't want to risk giving up anything, then yeah, absolutely. And if you're talking about the kind of greed where you are willing to do literally anything to get the maximum stuff and you're willing to take all those risks, all right. So what you're saying is greed under capitalism incentivizes you to provide things that other people want. Because that's really, I think, the crux of capitalism. It's not, extolling the worst elements of human psychology. It's redirecting them into something productive. If people are super greedy, well, the only way that they can successfully go about sating that greed is by providing things for people. That under communism, like they are not allowed to use that greed to provide things for people. That greed cannot be redirected into that. So therefore, all the time that people would have spent greedy, they now spend not providing anything for anyone.
I don't know, I think I'm a little bit lost on that. Like, essentially, here's where I'm saying is absolute capitalism, absolute communism is an absolute. All absolutes don't work as long as you have fucking humans.
So, but here's something that I would point out though, with the difference between absolute communism and absolute capitalism. So I agree. I'm a minarchist. I'm not an ANCAP. But when it comes to absolute free market capitalism, my argument is that it doesn't cause anything bad. It just doesn't compensate for certain issues that may exist, right? Like conquering warlords or whatever. The free market doesn't seem to have a very good solution for the whole situation of somebody actually trying to monopolize a finite resource, not something like air, but I don't know, something like diamonds, for example, through violent conquest, right? And but it doesn't cause that thing, right? I can't think of any negative thing that free market capitalism actually creates. And sort of Danny's point earlier was that greed exists independent of your economic system. And so people are still going to be greedy in a socialist or communist system. It's just they won't be able to actually convert that greed into a productive action.
They would be able to promote that greed into productive action. The only thing is they're not being greedy about the cash value.
Wait, what? So you're saying
But
under communism,
greed isn't
people-
just greed is not just money.
I'm not saying it's just
Greed
money.
is also power, and that's the problem where greed overcomes in socialism. To me,
Right.
communism.
Right. But wait,
you're gonna
Fada,
have
hold
one
up.
person
So
who wants to
you're
monopolize all the power.
Yeah, but hold up, Fada. You're trying to say here that communism sounds good in theory, right? So what in capitalism, if you're greedy, then you give people stuff they want. If you're in communism and you're greedy, then well, you can only go outside of the current system. So I don't know. You steal it. I don't know. Is theft okay in communism? But in communism, you certainly can't provide people with things in order to sate your greed. Right? So, what productive use can greed have under communism?
The balance of power, the balance of making the rules. Once you, and this is something that I do have a problem with socialism, communism, whatever phrase you want to say, is at a certain extent it actually looks like it's going to work when it first starts out. But then somebody gets greedy, not greedy on I'm going to take your resources, I'm going to take your money, but greedy on the sense of I'm going to have all the power. And at that point, that greed turns into more like not authoritarian place.
Right. Okay, so what you're talking about is
And I can
political greed, right? You're greedy for power, so you want to get as many votes as possible, and then you could say that communism has a useful place for greed. But then you've got to take a look at the superiority of a market system as compared to a democratic one. I agree that there are some things which you can't run through a market system, but anything you can, you should. The reason being, if I don't want to use a certain product, I simply don't use that product personally. However, in a democratic system, if I don't want a certain product, well, then I'd better hope I'm in the majority, because if I'm not, then I don't really get a choice. There's no individual by individual selection in a democratic system.
I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Well, that's what you're trying to say? Okay.
Good. I don't know. I just woke up. I'm not even one beer in.
I forgive you. You are forgiven, my son.
All right.
I wasn't prepared this morning to get into whether or not communism is good or whether or not slavery is justified.
Well, that's what this is all about, man.
Yeah, this is about the good arguments. So you couldn't defend communism, Fada. How about slavery?
Actually, you know what?
What?
It sucks because I'm on live now and everybody will hear. After that good argument session we had a couple weeks ago on slavery.
Yeah.
I may have changed my position on whether or not slavery is good, but as far as other
Oh,
people, but as far as other people are concerned, I had people in your Discord completely and utterly triggered
Yeah.
off the slavery.
Okay, so you did get people triggered, but only in the sense that you said something so monstrously retarded that they couldn't believe what they were hearing. Right? If that counts as
Yes.
triggered, then yes, you triggered the hell out of people. Yeah. So, well, that's a shame
believe
because so
it
anyone
wasn't-
listening at home,
I believe it wasn't
Mate,
slavery.
yeah,
It was indentured servitude, which I'm actually for.
you are for
not
indentured
slavery.
servitude. All right. So why?
Why the fuck should we give everybody shit for free at a never-ending cost to us?
What are you talking about?
Like welfare. I'm sorry.
Okay.
At a certain point, if you've spent so long on welfare,
Yeah.
and I'm a proponent for welfare, I think that it has a place. It's
No, you
something that
aren't.
binds- No,
You're
it
not a
binds
proponent for
all
welfare.
first-
No,
It
hold up. You
binds-
aren't. You are not in favor of welfare if you think that welfare should result in indentured servitude. That
Yeah,
is
if-
not
if you
welfare.
have to-
That's called a job.
Yeah, if you have to work for it, that's not welfare, right? That's yeah.
I think after a certain portion, welfare should be kind of how it is now, where we just give you enough to scrimp by. But if you figured out a way to make that shit scrimp by and that's your lifestyle, after a year, you know what? Guess what? You've been on this for a year, you haven't got a job, you haven't done anything for your life. I think at that point, we should be able to force you to sweep the streets, repaint that fucking subsidized housing, do public work actions, file paperwork. And if you don't like that, well, we give you a wage that allows you to come and buy yourself back, essentially.
Yeah. Okay, so, dude, that's not welfare. Just so you know, if you are forced to work, that is no longer welfare. And in that case, right? If you when someone
What's-
is accepting this welfare, what they're doing is they're agreeing to terms of this work. But, okay, so do you agree with bankruptcy laws?
That's such a fluid thing, but
No,
in
it isn't.
generalization, yes.
Okay, so you agree with bankruptcy laws. Fine. Then what I do is I go on welfare, and then when I can't pay back my debt, I declare bankruptcy. Then I don't have to do my indentured servitude.
No,
Why not?
because much like student loans and child support, it would be bankruptcy exempt.
Really?
Like if I say I owed 30 grand in back child support, I go bankrupt. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter. I still owe that 30 grand.
Right. Okay, so anyway, that actually kind of makes sense. So I'll just go to the main thrust of the point. If you want to put people in indentured servitude for being poor, you're creating an incentive structure for whoever is on the receiving end of that work, right? Whoever is benefiting from that work being done, they now have an incentive to get people to be enslaved by the state and stay there. That's not an incentive I want. Is it one you want?
Kinda.
You do. You want
want the-
someone to have an incentive to make people poor so that they'll be enslaved by the state.
Well, not when you phrase it like that.
Well, okay.
How could you phrase it? That
Hold
would be
on,
better?
let me grab another beer. I'll be right back. I just gotta go grab another beer.
Jesus.
All right.
Fucking what? Rude.
Looks
Very
like we got some conversation in the chat here.
Okay, so people should be allowed to sell themselves into slavery. That's called freedom. If you are a libertarian, you should support self-enslavement. No. So I think people should be able to sign that contract, which says, I'm a slave now. But that's
All right, I'm
the
back.
enforcement of that contract is a service that the government provides. So I don't think that the government should provide the service which is referred to as enforcement of slavery contracts. Someone can sign that contract, but the government won't enforce it, basically, because the enforcement of slavery contracts is, like I say, a service that the government provides, and the government should only provide services if they result in a freer or better society in some way that you deem important and valid for the state to take part in. Well, I don't think that you're going to improve anything by enforcing that contract. If someone sold themselves into slavery and now is like, oh shit, shouldn't have done that, I don't think you should enforce that. Because I think simply avoiding, I think simply having the state say, well, we're not going to ever enforce a slavery contract. You can sign one if you want. Oh, the government shouldn't enforce contracts. Okay, so we've got an ANCAP here. Under an anarcho-capitalist system, yeah, I do think that it makes sense to allow slavery contracts, but then it'll make sense to allow everything. So, you know.
Why won't Sterling come in?
Sterling, I don't know. He doesn't want to come in.
He's a coward.
What were you going to say before, Fada?
I'm just kidding.
Okay. Here's how it goes: is we have, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to bring up the single mother fucking lines here. We have single mothers that are happy living on welfare because that allows them to stay at home with their children, right?
Right.
Now, I don't actually see something wrong with that, except I don't think at that point, I think they should be giving back to us in one way or shape. So we have that single mother that's happy being on welfare. And you know what? She's a great mom. Now, we have this other person that ended up in a little bit of financial ruin.
Mm-hmm.
She loves her children, but she just doesn't want to be a stay-at-home mom because children do get annoying.
Mm-hmm.
And she'd be great at business. But because she can't afford childcare, she's stuck on welfare, essentially. So what is wrong with saying, okay, you know what? You're a great mom, and you can look after multiple children. You've been on welfare for 3 years. This other person's been on for a little bit. She wants to go back to work. You want to stay home. Well, here's the deal. You're going to get a little bit extra stipend, put it into your welfare.
Mm-hmm.
But that person now has free childcare.
So why not just not have welfare?
Name a first world country that doesn't have welfare.
That's not really the point. Name a first world country that has indentured servitude. I mean, the point I'm saying is why. So if your issue is that after a certain point, they become a net drain on the system, et cetera, then why not just not have it, right? Like if the expectation is that they need to do something in exchange for the support that they're being given, right? Then just don't have the welfare, right? Like just get rid of that and then let the free market fulfill that arrangement that you feel ought to be the case, right? If you feel that somebody needs to contribute or do something in exchange for the revenue they receive, then just don't have welfare. Because then you don't have the issue of like a government monopoly on labor, right? Because you don't have that incentive that Danny described earlier for just making people poor so that the state can make them workers, right? So, and you have all the other stuff that you've mentioned as concerns, right?
Right?
Okay. I'm going to kind of straw man this a little bit. Would your guys' opinion on slaves still be the same if you own slaves?
Yeah, I think it probably would be. That being said, I might.
Would you just
if I really
automatically
wanted,
free your slaves?
Hold up, let me finish. So, if I owned slaves, that would still be my position. But if I was going to be really selfish, I might just lie about my position and say, "Oh yeah, slavery. There's nothing wrong with that," even though I think there is. And it's just I have slaves and I'm selfish, right? So my position would be the same. But if I was going to be selfish, I'd lie about it. I'm going to claim I'm not selfish, but I'm assuming you won't believe me.
Right, and exactly right. Like, 'cause that's the thing, right? Like, if I were to go into sort of, I think it's more apt to ask a question of like, what if you existed in a society in which slavery was prolific and accepted and like part of the economic system there? At that point, I might say that I might like own slaves, right? Insofar as being able to gain enough influence and wealth to actually have sort of a meaningful impact on the system, but I wouldn't like being required to play by those rules, right? In the same way that, for example, I might, in the present era in which we live, I might use copyright law to gain a financial advantage or whatnot, but only insofar as that's the only way I can compete with other people who are going to exploit that same infrastructure. That doesn't mean that I support copyright law. It just means that you kind of have to or you have to play with the cards you're dealt, right? You have to play the game as it stands. You may not agree with the rules as they are, but if you want to win, then you have to play the game.
Yeah.
It looks like we have
And I
somebody
got
in
another
the
question.
waiting room there.
I have a
So this
question.
is Polly
Was this-
OK from Twitter. Polly was going to argue that AIDS and cancer are good for population control.
Should we bring Polly in here to have that?
Well,
there?
let's just make sure that Fada, do you have any more of the good arguments? Do you have any issues remaining?
No, I was actually just curious how I was kind of like invited to a stream, and it seems like let's throw hardball questions at somebody that's completely unprepared.
Yeah, well, it's
Welcome
meant
to
to
the
be the other way
stream,
around.
Matt.
You're meant to throw hardball questions at us. Was the idea, but this is
Oh.
we're just starting to get it in place.
Well, to be fair, also,
Okay.
as we said at the beginning of the stream here, everybody sucks but us. So, I mean, that's going to be a given, right?
Yeah.
We're going to double team everyone
right,
with the
then.
good arguments.
All right then. So we're going to drag Polly in, I think.
All right, I'd be interested to see.
Oh,
No, you got
Polly.
I'd be
feedback
interested
from
to see Paulie put some headphones in.
Am I connected?
Yes,
You're
but you
connected.
have some feedback.
But you're
Okay.
echoing. You need to put some headphones on.
Crap. Hold on, let me fix this.
Okay. So
This is the stream of technical difficulties.
Polly, your server muted. I'll unmute you in just a second. So Polly came on Twitter, and she's going to be arguing that we need more AIDS and cancer for population control. So, you know, this should be good.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
I'm kind of.
Yes,
kinda
we can
with
hear you now.
Polly.
Polly.
I did not say that. I was just trying to point out that the question was absurd.
Oh, Polly, you're still echoing. You have headphones.
Hey, let me move you away from my speaker.
Okay.
Headphones have speakers in your ear.
I don't have any headphones.
Oh, you don't have any headphones.
No, I plugged it into the speaker. I was hoping that would make it easier. It's the only thing I
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, we're still getting echo through your audio.
And it's quite bad, actually, unfortunately.
Alrighty. Well, I apologize. I will just put my comments in Twitter.
Right.
No, just put them in
well,
put 'em
you
in
can
the
try
side
just
chat.
turning us down a bit.
Huh?
You can try just turning us down a bit.
Okay.
And putting a barrier between the microphone and the speaker.
Is that better?
Let me
Test.
see. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
seems
fixed.
to have killed
Much.
the reverb.
Okay. Hello, welcome to the show, Polly. If it's not AIDS and cancer, what did you want to talk about?
No, I had said AIDS and cancer because I thought that the even communism in theory was just such a redundant concept that the only response I could come up with was making a comparison to something equally as devastating to the world population, which the only thing I could think of was, horrific
AIDS.
diseases.
So,
AIDS and
so
cancer,
basically, AIDS and cancer works in theory.
yeah.
Sorry, you can you turn that down, please? Sorry, my kid's playing a video game.
Okay, so
Uh,
this
Treya.
is turn. Oh yeah, actually, Tushi in the side chat said something too. If you just go to a push to talk rather than voice.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
so
I'll try
that's a
that.
good idea.
Thank you for the patience.
No
Yeah.
worries at all. This is the stream of technical difficulties. We're expecting this one to be a little bit rough around the edges. Yeah, I don't think that this is going to get into a good swing. I think probably this one's going to continue being very stunted, but that's fine. We need one of these, and hopefully,
Does that work better?
yeah, it does work better because you can just push to talk, and so as long as we shut up while you're talking, then it's going to work.
Yeah, I forgot about that feature ever since getting like an actual headset that is not shit.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So, have we just already gotten rid of all of the disagreement in the room, Fada? Is no one going to argue for slavery anymore?
I will for Kex.
No, you will for Keck. So no. So basically, we win already. All right. Well, thanks everyone. We've
But-
already won.
I do like the whole idea of population control. I'm just wondering, would it be selective population control, and who is the selector?
Random.
Yeah, random. It'll be random.
It would have to be.
I think I would honestly say that if you wanted to confront a population issue, that the only way to really honestly do that would be through economic gains. Through the free market, which is capitalism.
So basically, if you want to reduce your population, just let poor people starve.
No, create jobs and economic gain. When people are more employed,
Are
they're
those
less likely
those
to need to
jobs
have
only-
children and build these huge families where everybody needs to work and contribute.
Well, that
Okay,
is actually fairly true. The
So-
wealthier a family is, the
Oh.
less likely they are to have kids.
Hold on. Would those jobs only be available to those who do not reproduce?
What? No. It's just.
I'm not
No.
sure that that's a connection right there, though.
No,
Yeah,
it would
Fada,
just be
no,
a
we're not
social
talking about
consequence.
some kind of top-down solution where we the government creates jobs and gives them to people, right? We're talking about reducing government's role so that jobs can be created.
No.
So
Okay, yeah.
who gets so if you're talking about who gets the jobs, well, whoever gets them. I mean, that's pretty much it.
As long as we can continue paying women 77 cents on the dollar, I'm good.
Okay, fair enough. Agreed.
Wait. What was that?
So long as we can continue paying women 77 cents on the dollar, then Fada's happy.
Do we need to get into that? Do we need to start on that subject? Because we can. That was one of the possible topics of discussion that we were fiddling with at the
Right.
beginning of this.
Well, I mean, most people, when they come out and talk about the pay gap and talk about how it's a myth, they'll say, one of the things they'll say is they'll credit, the Equal Pay Act of, well, it depends where you are, 1963 in America, 1970 in the UK, 1972 in New Zealand. And they'll say that, well, that's responsible, that's why we don't have to worry about equal pay anymore, right? I've heard a lot of people do that. But actually, the Equal Pay Act did fucking nothing. And we shouldn't. It should never have been, and it was entirely unethical anyway. So that is perhaps a position.
And there
that
shouldn't be
people
surprising.
I don't even go to the Equal Pay Act. That's kind of a BS comment. What I go to is if I own a business and I have to pay Danny $1 and I have to pay Polly 77 cents to do the exact same job.
Yeah.
If they're doing the exact same job with the exact same outcome, guess what? It's hands down, I'm hiring Polly.
Right.
But in reality, we don't have that happening. If
Right.
the wage gap myth was real, women would be employed a fuck of a lot more than what they are. If it wasn't for their own personal choices to be underemployed, like, what the fuck?
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, sort of wages are in a lot of respects are sort of self-corrective, right? Because in the scenario you just described, where women were hired significantly more often than men, right? There would be a higher demand, which in turn would increase the amount you would actually have to pay them, which would just equalize, right? It would just at some point or another, assuming that the two sort of groups or whatever all made the same uniform decisions and whatnot, of course they would make equal pay because you would have a financial incentive for that outcome, right? That's just how the economics would work out.
It's called return on investment.
Right.
Now, here's the thing, and here's where the pay gap fucking is real, is I'm going to hire Danny and I'm going to hire Polly for the exact same job. I am going to pay Danny $1. I am going to pay freaking Polly 75 cents. But the difference is my return on that investment is going to be greater with Danny because he's not going to take time off to go see his child's hockey game or dance recital. He's going to actually be there throughout the entire realm of the company.
Well,
the reason why he's going to get promoted is because he's going to actually put the time in, put the effort in, and whatnot.
Right, but it's also important to keep in mind that we're talking on a statistical trend basis. It could be that Polly is a much better worker than Danny, right? There's nothing that precludes that.
I think it would help us if we mention specific careers.
That's the other
Garbage
thing,
man.
right? I mean, a lot of the time, because careers are going to sort of contribute to the sort of life that you want, right? Like if you're if you're very much a risk taker, for example, you might go into a career like law enforcement or something along those lines. Right. Conversely, if you're somebody who really values a flexible schedule and wants to be able to just leave work whenever, then you won't have like a job that's particularly demanding in terms of your importance.
Bones, to actually go off of what I said
Mm-hmm.
a little bit, just because you brought up law enforcement, I'll bring up firefighters as well. You realize that women have a different set of standards that they have to achieve to become a law enforcement officer or a firefighter.
Yeah, I think that's
now.
BS.
If they have a lower set of standards, how come we have to pay them just as much?
Yeah, no, I agree.
As
I
first.
think it's faulty that that there's a different threshold between the sexes. I think that if the job requires a certain set of physical characteristics, then it should require that set of physical characteristics, just one way or another, right? It's not like the fire gives a crap whether or not you have a penis or a vagina, right? That's a moot
Or more to the
consideration.
point, if you're some big fat guy, right, and a firefighter comes in and it's a woman, it's like she just says, "Oh no, well, to get the firefighter's job, I only had to carry the 80 kg dummies, so I can't actually rescue you. Sorry," and she fucks off and you die.
Right,
But if I could speak specifically about my own rough. Sorry.
Go ahead, Polly.
If I could speak specifically about like an industry in my own area is oil. There's a lot of oil rigs in this state, and a lot of the oil rig workers are men, and the women who are in that industry tend to take office jobs. And of course, they're going to get paid less because the men are working on the rigs. They're taking the risk. Can you really imagine your average woman as a roughneck?
I've met
Right.
a couple women roughnecks. Like where I come from as well is quite oil intensive.
There will
But-
be outliers, but you're not.
But it's
but
rare.
But
Yeah, the
throughout,
point
like,
is we're looking at probabilistic levels. When you talk about the quote unquote wage gap, what you're really looking at is a broad statistical analysis, right? So if you're trying to look at what results in that, why would you say, well, I know one or two women who are like this? And it's like, well, yeah, but statistically speaking, are women generally like that?
no.
Right.
Although I don't get why women aren't more in the oil field and why we can't put the 21 and 7.
Hey, Polly, do you want to go risk your life on an oil rig?
Not particularly.
There we
It's-
go. That's why, Fudder.
It's not even all. It's not even all that dangerous. But like you think that whole lifestyle could be based around a woman's menstrual cycle, 21 and 7.
What?
Pretty
No.
much any career field or industry could be based around the menstrual cycle.
That's pretty good. Well, but
wait, what?
no,
Oil
Futter's right.
rigging.
Futter's
Oil
right.
rigging should be based around women's menstrual cycles.
Well, the idea is that you would only work when you're off your cycle, when you're not on your period. Right? You would never have to work while you're on your period.
Yeah.
You would have to put all of the female roughnecks on one rig so that they would sink.
All 5 of them. No, like
Imagine oil prices would plummet every 3 weeks.
well, no, if we went and we planned it right, so all these women went on one rig, all those women went on another, their cycles would be different. We'd just have to figure out their cycles prior to employment.
Or we could just keep them like isolated from each other. Right? Just keep them like in little different we like compartmentalize the rig. Right? This woman gets sector A, this woman gets sector B, this woman gets sector C, etc.
That sounds like a nightmare.
Okay,
I
I'm
think that
just going to-
secretarial work is pretty good. I mean, it's comfortable work. They get paid well enough.
Well,
Okay,
this is also what I mean about probabilistic element, because I wouldn't want to go risk my life on an oil rig. That seems like really, really bad, just unpleasant work, and I don't think that the pay is actually commensurate. Like for me personally,
oil rigs is actually a pretty good job, man.
I mean,
It's not
It is.
near as dangerous as what people think.
no, and I agree with that too. I don't think that it is. I think it comes down to the fact that there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of other considerations too. It's funny because it also comes down to like cultural aspects, right? Where there's a certain sort of mindset and mentality that I don't think it doesn't mesh well for me.
Is that why we don't really have packies on the oil rigs?
Yes, that's exactly why.
I think I need another beer.
Yeah, you
So-
probably do, Farah.
So,
Don't end this
any
Stream
good bands?
because I'm not done being local.
Any
By the way,
what?
Danny, can you get Natalie in?
She's not online.
Well, I don't know. Call her. Do whatever. Get her in.
No. So, what are you going to say, buddy?
Oh, I was saying, is there
Bugs.
any good bands? So, I mean, I think we've milked this the wage gap topic dry, unless there's any contention, right? Like,
Right. Yeah. No one
I
actually
want some-
disagrees with us.
Yeah,
Um.
seems like we're just.
I don't know.
preaching to
Well,
the
there's
choir here.
Yeah, there's a couple of things we could still do to attempt to get some disagreements. So, does anyone think? Oh yeah, hello, Polly.
I had a conversation with my mother concerning a wage gap within Social Security. She told me that Social Security pays less to women in benefits. I have looked that up, and I actually can't find anything other than just sort of editorial pieces on it. But if anybody knows an actual Social Security source on that information, it would be interesting to hear about.
So, in the US, how do they determine what you get paid by Social Security? Is it based on previous income?
It's based on it depends if you are over well, usually it depends on how much you've put into Social Security.
Right. Well, then
And,
men put more into
your
Social
need.
Security so they get more out.
yeah, that would make sense. It also, yeah, it's pretty much all dependent on how much you've paid into the system.
Right. Well, in that case, I mean, yeah, I would imagine men would get more out, seeing as how men work more. So, you know, what she's saying is probably true, but that's not really a wage gap so much as it is men working more.
Another issue of the earnings gap, not a wage gap.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if you don't build up a lot of money in your savings account or Social Security, I'm not entirely sure how that works in the US, or in Social Security if you're staying at home with your kids, right? That doesn't pay very well.
It doesn't pay at all.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, I do agree that we've sort of milked the wage gap topic a little bit.
We
So-
need Natalie in here
We don't
because
we
I
might
have a
need-
topic. I have a topic.
We don't have Natalie, Fada. It's I'll tell her that you were very excited to talk to her, though. She'll be very flattered. So we could either start saying some controversial things to try to get people triggered and get them in here, or we could call the stream. Your choice, Bones.
Well, we're an hour in. I guess we could give it a shot. See if we can find some. Bites,
Okay,
but-
so we should either say there should be no such thing as copyright law, or morality is objective,
I like the
or
first one. Let's go with
okay,
that.
you like the first one?
There should be no
Okay.
copyright law whatsoever.
All right, let's
None.
see.
I disagree.
Yes, we were hoping for that.
I think there should be copyright law because if you're making something, because copyright law essentially protects your artwork. Now, what you're saying when you say there is no copyright law is your artwork's not valuable.
Wait, what?
No,
You're
you're not,
You may
because you
say
can
that-
sell your artwork.
Yeah, you may say that your artwork is not valuable under the certain set of conditions that no one else is allowed to make it. Right? It's
Right,
like-
but your artwork is valuable.
But it
it's
is,
absolutely
right.
valuable. You can make your art and you can sell it. However, if no one's willing to pay you for it, then no, it's not valuable.
Mhm.
Then why, if no one's willing to pay for it, why do you need a copyright?
Well, that's why. No,
why,
what are you talking about?
because-
That's exactly why you need a copyright,
Right.
because no one's willing to pay for your art. So
Well, no, why you need a copyright is because you can make fucking artwork and I can just go on and remake it identical
Right.
and sell it for cheaper.
Yes, nothing. You
Why-
would give it away.
What are you talking about? Why would you sell it? How could you sell it at all?
Well, if you're already getting fucking sales, what's stopping me from getting sales?
Why would
If
I get
lower
sales?
the
Give it
price?
away.
Why would it?
If I lower the price of it, why? Like,
Well,
what's-
okay, so let's say I've made some artwork, Fada, right? And what do you think I'm doing? I'm like selling copies of it?
Yes.
Right. How the hell would that work without copyright?
What do you mean? How would that work without copyright?
Well,
Right,
how would
if
you
you're in a system
prevent-
where there isn't any copyright law, how would you possibly sell copies of a piece of artwork when people can simply get a copy for free?
Yeah, I could just swoosh in and just give it away for free.
Now, you absolutely do need to get. You absolutely can charge for the original, right? Because there is only one original. Therefore, it is actually a scarce thing.
Right, it's difficult
Yes.
to reproduce.
Well, yeah, there's only one original,
It's a challenge to
and
manufacture.
people will. Well, it's not just that it's a challenge to manufacture. It's
Well,
also
there's the
um,
quality of it having been an original work as well. But I also mean sort of like
Yeah.
if you're talking about like a hand-painted painting, right?
Yeah.
There's characteristics and qualities to it that make it difficult inherently to reproduce, and
There
that's
are.
going to be
but
valuable.
additionally, it's the original, right? That's what I
Right.
wanted to go with.
But
right?
yeah, I understand.
So, Fada, if you've got the original, I've got the original of this painting I made, I can absolutely sell that because no one else can have that. I actually do have a scarce, valuable thing. But if I'm just sort of selling people like pictures of it, why don't they just print off their own?
Right.
Right? What I'm giving them isn't valuable. My artwork is, but I'm not giving them my artwork. I'm giving them a copy of it, and that isn't valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we could apply copyright to the free market.
How do you mean?
Well, say a company makes something and they all protect their work, whether it's dish soap or, a Nike shoe.
Yeah.
You can't just make your own Nike shoe and sell it as a Nike shoe, or you can't make Dawn dish soap and
That's
they
more
protect their
trade.
product.
That's trademark.
But it's still intellectual property. Trademark is intellectual property too.
Do you believe in intellectual property?
No,
No.
there should be no intellectual property. Look, so if you've got a trademark, right, I can understand if you're like selling a Nike shoe and saying it's a legitimate Nike shoe and people are buying it, not knowing that it isn't actually a legitimate Nike shoe, that's fraud, and that's fine. That can be against the law. But if you're but in that case, the person who's damaged is the person purchasing it, not Nike, right? The person who wanted a legitimate Nike shoe and you sold them a fake one, right?
Well, Nike would still be damaged about that because that person was legitimately going to buy a Nike shoe and went to somebody else. Which means
that's just because someone was going to buy your thing and then doesn't, that is not you being damaged. Right? Because that is an effect which is also created when you outcompete someone. Right?
I might go to
when I outcompete you.
I might go to the shop and buy a pizza, right? But if I have a sandwich at home and I'm no longer hungry, the pizza place isn't damaged, right?
No,
Yeah.
you're going and you want a Domino's pizza.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I'm able
And you
to...
go to somebody that is not Domino's,
Uh-huh.
but says they are.
But they
and buy
hold
it.
on. There's a difference there because again, it's sort of the aspect of branding. The person, if all I want is a pizza that is mechanically equivalent to a Domino style pizza, right? And somebody is able to reproduce a Domino style pizza perfectly, right? They can make that pizza from the ground up, and it's like physically indistinguishable from the other pizza, and that's what I want. Then, okay. Good, like, right? Like,
So, under that realm, did Domino's suffer a loss
No.
in sales or not?
absolutely not.
How not? Because you
Because-
were going to buy something from them and you no longer did.
Right?
Well, that's the same as the sandwich.
Yeah. If exactly, it's the same as it's the same as any other circumstance, right? Because I don't want their brand, right? I want their product. It's like this. If my sink is broken, right, and I hire a plumber to come fix it, that isn't a slight against every other plumber, right? Like, that's just basic competition.
Okay. Now, you want to buy a truck.
Right.
Yes.
You're
I
going
don't
to
wanna
buy
keep
a
changing
Chevy.
object.
You're going to buy a Chevy
Why?
Yeah.
because you expect it to last you 5 years,
Sure.
Okay.
based off of Chevrolet's reputation.
Sure.
I come out, I produce 100 replica Chevys,
Mm-hmm.
and they're good for a year.
Okay. So it's not the product that I'm after then.
I sell you one because
Yeah.
it looks identical. It uses the Chevy name. It uses everything. But instead of your investment lasting 5 years, it lasts one.
Did you wait? Can I just pause here? Did you tell me that it was an authentic Chevy?
Yes.
Well, then you've committed fraud. No need for copyright law or trademark law. That's
fine.
fraud. That's
Fine.
already against the law.
No, I did not tell you it was authentic because the question never came up.
Okay, but did you?
But no, hold on. If he says yes,
Did you?
he said it's not an authentic Chevy. So then, what's the issue here, right?
No, he said the question
No.
didn't come up. If
So
the question
okay,
didn't
but
come
that
up,
was
Question never came up.
no. Hold on. Sorry. Upon initially posing the question, the answer was yes, right? And then you switched it to no after Danny pointed out this stuff, right? Because I
Because I realized once you said yes, it was committing fraud.
No, it's not. It's not fraud if you say yes. If you say this is not an authentic Chevy, this is just a
no,
replica.
he said yes. No, he said
Sorry, was the
yes.
No,
I
if
said,
I
did you?
said that
No,
it
hold up,
was
hold
something-
up. Okay, so what
Sorry.
happened was I asked Fudder whether he told me that it was an authentic Chevy, and he said yes.
And I quickly changed my answer because I realized, oh wait, no, because Danny will
Okay.
take that too as a fraud question.
Oh,
right,
So that's
so-
where I
Say it
changed
was.
my answer to.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's where
okay,
I
so
changed my answer to it. The question never came up.
Okay, so I can move on. Okay, so no, if you didn't tell me that it was an authentic Chevy, right? But did you trick me into thinking it was, right? Like, were you of the reasonable belief that I thought it was an authentic Chevy?
And that's where copyright and trademark.
That's
laws
that's
come
not
into
where
play.
copyright law is. That's still fraud. If I sell you if I like say, hey, I'll give you this for $100, and I have like a box with a power drill in it, or a power drill box, right? And you go, oh yeah, all right, and we trade, and then I open the box and there's no power drill in it at all, and I'm just like, what the hell, man? And I would say that you've committed fraud, not because you told me it was a power drill, but because you implied it. And similarly, if you've implied that it's a Chevy, that's still part of the contract. So you've still committed fraud unless you know that I know that it's not a Chevy.
All right.
Okay.
So it's really a matter of ethics.
Yeah, it's doing an ethical business deal. It's just being honest about what you're providing to the other person, because that really, when he sells me a Chevy, right, the terms of the agreement we've made are, I will provide him with the money, he will provide me with one Chevy truck, and if he provides that counterfeit one, he has not fulfilled his terms of the agreement, and thus he has in effect stolen from me.
Except the agreement was I would provide you a truck.
Well,
No.
I don't think it was. I think that if you show me a truck that looks exactly like a Chevy, and you sort of imply that it's a Chevy, right? Then, well,
Did
you
I or
committed
did-
fraud?
Did I not supply?
Hello, Fada, you cut out there.
Oh. You came to buy a truck. Did I or did I not supply you a truck?
So here's the problem, though, Futter, because you're kind of you're taking both ends of this when it's convenient, right? If I come in and all I'm looking for is a truck, right, and that's literally all I'm there to buy, and I don't really care about sort of the technical specifications of said truck, as informed by the reputation of the brand that's being used on that truck, right? Then sure, you fulfilled your end of the bargain, absolutely. But then you don't get to go and turn around and say, oh, but, they would have bought a Chevy then instead, right? Because that's not the case, right? They wouldn't have. Right? Because I'm looking for a specific product in that instance.
Right.
Right. So
it all depends whether.
Yeah, either
So Fada, it all depends whether we both know that it's a Chevy or not, right? If you know that I think it's a Chevy and you sell me it on that basis, right? Even if you don't specifically say that it's a Chevy, if you know that I think that and then you sell me it, then you have committed fraud because the agreement that we have was not fulfilled by you, because you know that I think it's a Chevy, thus the agreement is about a Chevy.
Well, I'm hoping this MIB Bees, Mibiz, whatever that person is, comes in here because I need to go get cigarettes.
Okay,
You go get cigarettes. Oh, well.
then.
I'm like 200. I'm 200 feet away from the store, but that means that I'm going to be gone for about 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay, we're gonna boot you then.
All right.
We're gonna bring in.
Yeah, we might just boot you.
Mibs.
All right. Bye, Fada.
Bye, Futter. Get out.
All right, booted.
Booted.
So
Authoritarian boot heel.
people have been saying on both Twitter and in the chat that we're wrong about intellectual property and it should just be reformed, not removed. I'd like someone to come on the stream and say that.
I know, right?
Come say that to my face, bitch. But it doesn't seem like we've actually got anyone who's willing to defend intellectual property via voice. So I'll just
It's an
tell you
inferior idea
why you're all
then.
wrong.
QED.
Yeah. If no one's really willing to defend it, then I guess that just means that we're right and they're wrong.
Yeah.
Well, do we legally regulate ethical business practices, and does that relate to copyright law?
Well, I think we should regulate ethical business practices to some extent. We should we should just do basic contract enforcement. The government should enforce contracts, even if they're implicit. So because the government has to stop theft, it has to be able to determine what is owned by who, right? And in order to determine what is owned by who, it has to be able to have some standard of when one item is transferred to another person. Thus, contract law is necessary to be provided by the government. If contract law is necessary, then the government needs to determine what a valid contract is, and therefore it needs to enforce laws against fraud. So fraud, it absolutely has to police. If it's going to do anything to do with protecting property at all, it has to have an understanding of fraud. But copyright law is entirely different because it's generating this new class of property which needn't exist in the first place, right? And frankly is outside of the scope of what property laws are meant for. Property laws are made so that people can't take things from one another. You can't take someone's idea, you can only copy it. So the fraud, absolutely, if that's what you mean by ethical business practices, but intellectual property, no, because there's nothing unethical about copying something.
I think that copyright can be used. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I think that it's really ripe for abuse.
Oh, it is.
I think it can
it's
definitely be
inherently
abused.
abuse, right?
Right, I
Because-
can't think of an instance where copyright law isn't abused. Actually.
Right, because what you have is you have a central authority, right, that's basically kicking people's doors down and saying, don't do this thing. And not because it's not because, the thing that they're doing is harmful to anyone, but because it doesn't facilitate another person's profit. We have almost no other laws where the law is based around, if we didn't have this law, then this person wouldn't be able to make money. It's that's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
We don't want legal structures for the sole purpose of facilitating some desired outcome. We prevent bad outcomes, right? Like fraud. The bad outcome that you're preventing in that case is people entering into financial transactions under false premises, right? So, but with the other one, it's just don't do this thing, otherwise I wouldn't be able to make money. It's well, tough. Figure out a different way to make money.
Yeah.
But if you have, say you make a thing, right,
Yeah.
and you put it on the market,
Mm-hmm.
it's healthy for the economy to have competition.
Agreed. 100%.
And if you then get the government to say, well, I made this thing first, so no one else can make it, right? I can't think of a better description of government enforced monopoly, of a complete destruction of competition.
We got to get somebody other than Polly in here, because it seems Polly agrees with us. We need somebody
Yeah, Polly, you're just agreeing with us.
super
too
based.
much. Yeah, you're too based, Polly.
I look at
Too based.
things. I'm sorry. I try to look at things from all angles and come up with the most logical, reasonable, response. I'm not really emotions based.
Yeah.
You see what she
No,
did
it
there?
seems like it.
She's logic and reason.
I have friends who are artists. I have, artist friends. My mother is a photographer. So, if she takes a photo and, she goes to this art fair every year where she sells her photography, I think that in her case, putting a watermark or, getting her, this is, her property. She sells originals. She doesn't sell copies. Getting that copyrighted, I think, is something that protects her work. On the other hand, for a corporation, for example, somebody makes a cup of coffee. Well, it's not fair to say that now you own coffee. You're the only person who can sell coffee.
So here's a counter question though, because I've heard this distinction a lot, where copyright law is ideal to protect like small groups and whatnot. Let's say I don't know any big photography companies out there, but let's just, I don't know. Let's say that what's one of the major greeting card companies? Hallmark. Yeah, let's say Hallmark takes your, takes one of these pictures, slaps it on one of their cards, and then sells that card. What recourse does the original photographer actually have, realistically? Like, are they going to sue Hallmark in a civil suit?
They wouldn't be able to sue Hallmark without some kind of legal proof that they own the work.
Well, I mean, even if they did, though, do you think it'd be realistically that they would win that suit? Or do you think that I think
Probably
it's far more likely that Hallmark would just basically do as much as they could to prolong the process until the person that was suing just ran out of money and just couldn't continue?
Granted, but I mean, this Hallmark is still disincentivized from doing that because it would still cost Hallmark money, right? Like,
right.
The court case is probably still going to cost more than just paying for your own photographer.
Arguably, that's true.
Yeah. So get wrecked, Bones.
I am wrecked. I am destroyed.
But yeah, so
I'm just noticing in the chat here.
Yeah.
Tucci is telling Eliaf to get in the chat with us. To which she replies, "Why don't you get in there?" And Tucci says, "Well, for starters, I don't really disagree with them." And that's just proof that our friend Tucci there is really based.
Yeah, there we go. Based Tucci. But the basic thing about intellectual property, right, is so you think that. So am I understanding you right, Polly, when you say you think that there is a place for intellectual property?
I think that it serves to protect, smaller creators.
It serves to protect smaller creators. What do you mean by that? Like, can you give us an example of someone who you think should be able to claim intellectual property?
Well, going back to my mother, for example, she's had this issue where she is selling her photography, and people have come up and said, "Oh, I've seen that photo somewhere else in a book," which they didn't. It wasn't. It was silly. It's just an example.
Right.
If perchance somebody did take one of her photos and put it in a book, and they were making, and I really think that this is like just dealing on separate levels. She could not take on a huge corporation, but she could take on another small creator to protect her property.
She probably could, but if you think about a situation in which there is no intellectual property, to begin with, how would this other creator, this other small creator who's making a book that has photos in it, for example, how would they be turning a profit?
They could still turn a profit without taking somebody else's work.
No, I'm not talking about taking someone else's work. I'm saying, imagine there is no intellectual property law at all. There is no copyright. How could you possibly sell that book of photographs and turn a profit? Right? Would anyone buy it?
I'm interjecting real quick. Since nobody else seems to want to come on, I'm going to drag Futter back in here.
Okay.
So if anyone gets bored of Futter, you got to actually come on.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. Welcome back, Futter. We weren't talking shit about
Hey,
you.
how's it going?
Yeah. But I want to hear what Polly is saying here. So, Polly, so Fada, I think you've got the stream on or something, because I can hear.
Yeah, no, I'm off to mute it right now.
Okay. So, Polly, what is it that you think that the someone would be able to sell involving your mother's photographs if there was no intellectual property?
Well, if there was no intellectual property, then it would it wouldn't really be an issue, would it?
Right, no, because I mean, it does mean that probably photographer might not be as viable a career choice, because you can't necessarily get
Probably
paid to produce photographs. It would be less viable.
No, you would no. It would be less viable. I think any kind of creative work would probably be less viable. But I think that if you look at the
It
majority,
would still be viable.
if you look at right, it would be viable. That's my point. I think because if you look
It
at
would still be viable. So what your mom would have to do if she wants to take photos for a living is she would have to take photos of stuff that doesn't already exist, right? Where the photos don't already exist, and she'd have to do that on commission.
right.
Because if the photos already exist, then all of the labor has already been done. And really, it's kind of a waste of labor if there is already in existence a photo that is perfectly fit for someone's purpose, but they just simply can't use it because the government says no, right? You can't unless you pay this exorbitant fee. I think that is a waste of productivity. So
Okay, I'm following you. I'll be right back. I've got something in the oven.
All right, fair enough.
We're,
Alright,
we're having some technical
Is it a bun
difficulties
in the
again.
oven? Is it a bun in the oven?
No, it's
Yes.
chicken.
No.
Maybe it's
Well, tastes the same.
okay. We had a
That
mild
was actually
spike
pretty
there.
good. We had a mild spike in
We had a mild lag spike there. We dropped a few frames, so apologies for that.
Oh, tragic.
Why is Allie not in here? I see that she's in the comment section of the video, but she's not coming in here.
She's afraid of the good arguments,
No.
just like everyone else.
All right. I think though that we might bring this to a close if no one has any arguments for us. If intellectual property is entirely retarded and shouldn't exist, and no one can provide any good arguments against us, then I think that we've won.
Again.
All right.
We win again. All right. Well, so
Can-
lesson for next time is maybe try to sort out some people to begin with, maybe a bit beforehand. I think maybe if this show starts getting a little bit more popular, we'd get some people showing up in the chat and things, and it would be much more easy to get people in to argue. But at the moment, I think probably we'd need to pre-schedule a couple of guests.
Yeah, we might.
Yes.
I'm curious. Have you ever had a show about Antifa?
We haven't. Maybe we could get someone on from Antifa.
The whole pre-scheduling guest things,
Yeah.
that would work out really well. Or having more of an invite that, hey, want to come on a stream? That'd be like,
I didn't
what are
just
your
do that.
views
You're the only one who I sent that to, Father. Everyone else who I
Oh.
talked to,
Yeah,
I gave more
You're very
context.
privileged, Futter.
Yeah.
I do have an idea for the next show.
All right. Well, maybe we should take it off air.
All right.
Oh,
Well,
fine.
thanks everyone for watching. And as always,
Thank you for letting me come on.
What does Michael say at the end of Vsauce there?
Thanks for watching.
And as
Sorry,
always,
you already did it.
thanks for watching. Shut up, Danny.
Protest.
You suck.
Uh,
I'm ending the stream
Stay
now.
should be
awesome,
the
bros.
that should be the ending.
Goodbye and
comment
fuck right.
Okay, I'm ending now. 3, 2.